Hello and
work
welcome.
for everybody.
Don't say stuff. Don't say stuff. Don't speak unless spoken to, Tim.
You knew he was about to do an intro. You're just
You saw me breathe in, and then you jumped in with something. What'd you say?
Yeah.
What was so important you had to say?
show.
That's fair. I don't know. I think I said you sound like extra work.
That's not even that's
Something along
that's
those
not
lines.
even
I was just repeating what he said.
relevant to the conversation. Anyways, guys, here we are. 100 Days to Indy, episode 3, season 2 recap. I'm gonna be very frank this episode. Not that I'm not frank.
Most
episodes.
say, how's that new?
But I want to put a disclaimer by it and say everything that I'm about to say is not at all a reflection of 100 Days to Indy, nor the production crew, nor the editing crew, nor anyone involved in actually creating it. It is the fault of us being IndyCar and the series and the drivers. But man, to me, that was a boring episode. Like that was.
But hang on. You got to explain why you think it was a boring episode.
I am. I'm getting there,
Okay.
but I'm just. Right. That's the title of my of my document that I'm turning in for homework.
Your essay.
I love Scott.
He might be my favorite IndyCar driver.
I love Felix. In some ways, I love Joseph. But for whatever reason, aside from the news about Scott getting a golden retriever puppy, which copycat, and aside from the news,
because you were the first guy to get a golden retriever,
the very first
puppy.
white American guy to get a golden retriever puppy. Yes.
Okay, well, he's not American, so
okay, there you go. Well, he wants to be. And aside from the news that they're pregnant, which is amazing, congrats to Scott and Carly. Very cool. Incredibly boring, just stories from both of them. I don't know what else to say. I don't know if that is because of we're in the season, and everyone's locked in, focused, dialed in. Sure. If I was being televised, I would also be boring. Again, this is not a reflection of Scott and Felix. And I think also some of it is, and we've talked about it on the main episode of Off Track before, IndyCar as an entity is so small in the grand scheme of things and sports and everything. I'm not comparing it to other motorsports. I'm just saying in the grand scheme of sports that we've often said that the athletes are not bigger than the brands. The athletes are not on, again, we have wonderful lives, but we're not on a salary of an NBA player or an NFL quarterback or something like that, or a musician or a rap star or something like that.
They're not making headlines. The salaries are not making headlines.
Exactly. So the things that would be very dynamic and interesting and captivating to look at this time of the year, let's take, for example, Felix and Emil planning their wedding. Very exciting. Would be potentially really engaging for an audience if they were out scouting venues and taking their friends and family around to these different places and checking out. Instead, it's like sitting on their couch in their apartment, like, oh, okay, well, we got to manage our budget here and do all these things, which is this same conversation I had with Kelly.
We've done it.
We've all done it. But it's like, I think it's people need to understand that we are not bigger than the brands we're associated with. We are not making a headline salary. So what you get from that is you get very normal representations of life. And also you bring in this dynamic that, Jenna Fryer talked about between Scott and Joseph, right? And how the animosity and tension was building. And Joseph's asked about it. And he's like, yeah, everything's fine. And it's like, again, it's because we can't really relay the things that we want to say. Like Joseph is thinking inside, I'm so furious that he beat me. He is not nearly as good as me. How can he think that he's better than me after being in this series for 3 years and all the effort and sacrifice and things that I do? And this guy drinks on the weekend and all this stuff. And I count my macros and micros and all these things and these things that I do. There's no universe where he's better than me is what he's really thinking. And that's fine. He can't say that because he looks like, which is, again, no one would say it. But I think that's what this episode was missing, was kind of that edginess that
honesty.
everyone knows exists, but no one can really say it.
Let's go, guys. I somewhere in that vein, just before we get too far from it, I do think we should break up as a podcast, because I think Bus Bros got a ton of coverage and they don't exist anymore. So I think if we're trying to get on this show and we want to get some promotion, I think we gotta break up.
I think we're actively trying not to get on the show. Well,
I mean, we can still happily break up with you, Tim. That is not a problem for anyone else involved in this show.
Oh, I can go back to bed?
Yeah. So
wait, now I'm actually necessary now that we're on YouTube.
That's a great point. It's a great point.
fair. Sorry, guys, we will no longer be on YouTube. That experiment has failed due to the loss of Tim.
Okay, so James, give your 2 cents, please.
Okay, so I agree with everything that you're saying, right? Like you talk about Felix and Emil planning the wedding and talking about, oh, this will be, we'll save some money on this. Like LeBron James wasn't worried about saving money on his wedding, right? So it's a very different dynamic. That is true, and it is a less cool dynamic, and that's again. No one who makes a living driving Indy cars is complaining about the living that they're making, right? I want to be very clear about that. But we're talking about what engages the audience.
We're talking about television here. This is a television series, right? Right.
And when you have like the Kardashians on shows and like even Full Swing with guys at the PGA who make like 10 mil a weekend if they win, it is a different conversation, right? Like I even remember internal conversations in the IndyCar world when the $1 million challenge at Thermal was announced. And that's a big deal. Like $1 million paycheck is awesome. And like we used to do that in the early 90s and it was a big deal. But everyone today is like, oh, $1 million? Cool. Like, and by that, I mean the like people at home, like that's not a headline grabbing amount of money anymore when quarterbacks are signing for $35 million a year and Max Verstappen's making $55 million a year. It's like, people don't care about that. It doesn't have the same draw. So I do totally understand that. And we've talked about this time and time again about how compared to even like NASCAR drivers, certain NASCAR drivers, IndyCar has always been in this position. Well, in the last 20 years, certainly has been in this position where everyone's so terrified of saying something to offend a sponsor because we're not bigger than the brands that you do kind of keep it a little bit PC. And yeah, Joseph's answer was kind of laughy-go-lucky about that question about him and Scott. Scott was just like, go ask Joseph. So like, there's more to the story, right? But they just don't feel like they can share that. And that specific example, they are also teammates and still have to work together for the rest of the year. So I do understand you're not going to like.
I'm not saying that I would have done anything different. I'm saying this
you
is
said
this
you would
is
have
the
done
position
exactly the same.
We are all coming from, and I just want to say that. Because if people watch this episode and they're like, hey, I agree with Alex, that was boring, but these are the reasons why. It's not because anyone's intentionally doing this or anything like that. So anyways, let's get now.
I don't know if I'd say fully boring. I would say it was the slowest one. Okay. I thought they were I did actually enjoy not really. Like I did enjoy a deep dive into Scott's life. I thought the Felix stuff was pretty boring, but maybe it's because Scott's my favorite.
I'll tell you what I liked about. I'll tell you what I liked about about the Felix stuff. And again, as a guy who doesn't drink coffee, I was very impressed with his coffee setup.
That's one hell of a setup.
Even that heart that he put on the top of the coffee was very impressive. I got to say.
Yeah. And I love Emil saying that, like, a little every once in a while isn't a bad thing.
Right?
As somebody who makes a cappuccino every afternoon, mine usually just has random blob on top.
Yeah, random blob. Very artistic. It's funny, though, in that kind of conversation between the two of them, though, he said something that I think sounds, like when you think about it, kind of commonsensical, makes sense, but it's worth kind of touching on because he made the comment that it's like, yeah, you're not stressed and it's not hard when things are going well, right? It's when your struggles are on track, that's when it's like really hard to be a driver or like to be an athlete when things are not going well. And that's when you really need that support. And like, that's when it seems really tough off track. Like if things are killing it, you can be working just as hard, but like it just carries different, right? Mm-hmm. And Felix obviously went through that for the last couple of seasons. dealing with those struggles on track, which would make your life off track that much worse.
But isn't that life?
No.
Everything is hard when it's hard and easier when it's easy. Or
well, look, I'll
like,
okay, let's use 2 racing examples, right? Nico Rosberg won the F1 World Championship and immediately retired because he was like, I can't physically do that again. The amount of effort I had to put into winning that is too much. I cannot mentally do it, emotionally do it, physically do it, from a family's sake. Like, I cannot do it. I'm done. I won it. I'm glad I won it, but I'm never doing that again. So he was not happy.
Here's I don't want to delve into the Nico thing because I don't know Nico. I've never met him in my life. So this is
what about Joseph? Wins the 500. Not happy.
Well, Joseph was not happy because he was getting beat by Scott in the championship. Like, we all know why Joseph was not happy. Joseph was not happy because he won. Was not unhappy because he won the Indy 500. He was unhappy because the rest of the season was not meeting his expectations. Let's be clear. That's the first.
I mean, he won. No, I'm gonna step in here. He won 3 races after that, and he didn't know Scott was going to beat him in the championship until Laguna. So, like,
okay, Scott was closer than he wanted. There was tension building. Anyways, the Nico thing. I've always wondered if that was a cop out, because not a cop out. I'm not saying that it wasn't challenging for him. I'm not saying that it didn't take every ounce of his being to make that happen. We all know and remember the kind of gamesmanship that was happening off track and the tension that existed, right? But Nico only won that championship because Lewis had a pretty high rate of mechanical failures. Okay.
Yes, a higher rate than Nico. Yes.
Right. And Nico was competitive and was close, but Nico also knew he couldn't touch Lewis. Like, and everyone knew that. So he got his championship. Why would he then want to go back and get smoked by Lewis? Right. I don't think it was the effort was too high. He snuck one in there and he knew he wasn't going to do it again.
Okay. But like finishing, because they're the dominant car at the time, right? So you're still finishing second to Lewis and still making $15-20 million a year. Like,
he's since come out and said he made that decision because he was already set financially. He had made so much money that money was not a factor anymore. So why is an athlete, a competitive person that he was, right, and the legacy that the Rosberg family is and everything, why would he want to taint that by getting drilled by his teammate for the next 3 years? I don't think it had anything to do with the mental strain or physical strain it took on him. It was, holy shit, I pulled a rabbit out of my. That's probably not going to happen again. I don't need the money. Why am I going to put myself through this?
Well, that's a solid argument.
It's an opinion. I don't know the guy. I don't know the guy.
Can we save that? I think we saved that argument for main episode.
No, for sure. But my point is with like Felix, it's like, I mean, when you're struggling at work because your boss is and you're making X amount of money, it's tough. But when you're not struggling at work because your boss is supportive and you're making the same amount of money, it's easier. Like that all kind of makes sense.
Yes. I know people that have quit successful, high-paying jobs because the boss was and they weren't happy away from work. So there are different ways of yes. Yeah. I'm saying it's hard to be good. It's also hard to be not good, I guess. This is kind of different kinds of hard. And then I thought it was funny that Pato was like, yeah, I'll come to the wedding if I don't have to go to Singapore.
Which is fair.
Yeah.
I skipped a job because I had to come to your wedding.
Yeah, but you were not. You skipped a microphone job. You didn't skip a race. You wouldn't have skipped driving a race car.
No, but that's not what Pato's going to do. What Pato does at F1 races, he walks around and does hot laps and glad hand sponsors. Like,
but
he's not missing a race.
That's very important to him.
For sure. But he also has other opportunities to do it in the year. And I'm sure Zach would understand him missing one for his best friend's wedding. I just thought it was funny. Again, I'm not going to hold it against him if he doesn't go. I do understand that that's his job. Fair. But it's like it's the only time he gets to go to an F1 race in his life. I just thought it was funny.
Yeah.
I wish we had talked to Scott's parents more. I feel like they're super cool, and I would have loved to have heard about little Scott as a snot-nosed kid.
I tell you what, his dad. I like his parents a lot. I met him in person. Amazing people. But his quote after, so Scott had qualifying didn't go his way. Fine. had every opportunity to have a good race, and then his engine broke. And his dad afterwards was like, well, haven't been here for 12 months and came all this way to see that. Kind of dumb sort of thing. And it was like, man, that's brutal. Tough crowd.
Even before that, he was like, I didn't come all this way to see a second place.
Right.
It's like, damn, Dad.
Yeah.
Wayne's bringing the heat, man.
No doubt.
I did think it was funny though and I thought it was interesting. Like when they were talking to them and his mom chimed in about how he's like, yeah, he's done everything, but now it's like Indy 500 check and then championship check. And it's like, okay, even Mom's putting the 500 in front of a championship. It's just like that's how much.
Mom also may have realized she was being interviewed by 100 Days to Indy,
or she was just doing chronologically.
Yeah. Not 250 days to the Astor Cup or whatever
to Nashville.
Yeah. Hilarious that I feel like Tim would get along great with Scott's brothers-in-law, considering they just get random tattoos that say "to the moon" on their leg, just because. So that's right up Tim's alley.
I thought the same thing.
Right,
Tim, how many tattoos do you have?
People,
I'm up to 7.
How many did you have without any alcohol in your body?
1.
Right. Okay. Wow. I actually wasn't entirely expecting that answer. I didn't think it was quite that heavily weighted, but yeah, that actually.
I thought you were surprised there was 1.
So it would have been Hazel's birthday, right?
Yeah, exactly. That would make sense.
Oh, that one I knew I was going to get sober, but I'd had a few before I got it.
So what was the one? Family Crest?
Yeah, when I was 16.
Okay. Oh, well, that's why
you
were
couldn't
sober.
legally drink, right?
That's so good.
So I got my first one at 12. After that, I was drunk for the rest of them.
All right. So other things that I thought were kind of funny was so Tom and Felix and Mike Shank were on a boat it seemed like it was St. Pete.
I think it was St. Pete, yeah.
Okay. Anyways, kind of given the pep talk to start the year and all this stuff. And Tom was like, oh yeah, kind of talking about how he doesn't spend any money and all this stuff, but he has a house in Miami and Monaco. And I was like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. And then I looked and his shirt was from Acme Studios. It's like, that's a $350 shirt. So I was like, oh.
So you spent some money.
But I thought, it was I've actually really never heard Mike Shank talk much.
Yeah, I've just seen him slam a beer or try and climb a fence.
I don't know. I don't know if we've attended the same events or whatever. But it was interesting to hear his kind of angst against being called a small team.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
And I guess that's normal for a team owner to believe in everything that they have is growing and everything, but like he takes that personally. And, I think it's pretty cool to see Felix, at least in qualifying through 4 races of the year, kind of reward that mentality. Like they've got a chip on their shoulder. They're pissed off and they don't believe they're a small team. And bam, look at this. We've got 2 poles and all this sort of thing.
And they both are like that's how Felix feels and that's how Mike feels. Yeah. And I feel like that's part of why that environment is really good right now. I mean, it sounds annoying, but like I said in the show, one of the things is like when there's
are you he's in the show? Yeah,
that
big deal.
Drivers always want to try to prove when they switch teams, they want to prove to their old team that they made a mistake letting them go if it was kind of like a team decision, right? And right now, Felix is out qualified on average. No offense, Alex, the entire McLaren team. He's ahead of all McLaren drivers in points. And this is from a team that was like really struggling last year and he's ahead of everyone but Colton from Andretti as well, which, is the sister team in a way. So man, they've shown up and they're kind of proven they're not a small team. Look,
right.
Numbers. Yeah, sure. Ganassi's got 3 cars. Petke's got 3 cars.
We're not talking about numbers.
Right.
But ability to fight and be in the game.
Ability to fight and heart, man. They're top 3. I'll give them that right now. So that was
That means, shoot.
I didn't say who the other two were.
I can guess.
I don't know. One team doesn't look like it has quite as much heart as I thought it did.
A lot of software, though.
Lot.
But we're not going to, everyone knows, but we're not going to talk about that because it hasn't happened in the show yet. All right. So let's go to Long Beach. Watching those clips back just made me even more angry.
So confused, man.
Confused about what Scott pulled off.
Yeah.
Because maybe we don't. For those that don't know, I don't watch the races back. I don't understand. Joseph was inside of him. Like he was so close for quite a few laps.
Phrasing. I'm going to say phrasing on that.
Objection. Phrasing.
He was so close. They were touching, essentially, right?
Better, not good.
His nose was in his butt.
Objection. Phrasing.
And we're back. And we're going back the other way. We're still not as bad as we started. We started it down here. We went up here, and now we're back here.
His nose was under his car.
No, Colton's nose was under Joseph's car.
Listen. Joseph was really close to Scott. Okay?
Yes, there we go. Man, was that so hard?
I didn't realize he had new alternates versus used, and also all the fuel versus none of the fuel.
Negative fuel.
Right. How, dude?
Here's the thing, man. He was catching him a second a lap.
I know.
He closed down like a 7 second
gap. And then he
gap.
got there and what, just nothing? Like, and Joseph doesn't, because it's not like Joseph doesn't know how to overtake.
No, he's very capable of doing that. He's proved that time and time again. What I couldn't believe, like you've done this, we've done this, you know how this works. Like when you're hitting a number, like the button is illegal. Like you cannot touch the button because even a little bit of the button, your fuel consumption goes up so aggressively, right? So then the next lap, the next number you have to hit is that much harder to hit, right? Scott somehow saved enough while he was losing a second a lap that not only could he make it to the end, for those last 10 laps, like he could spray push to pass every single lap. He burned like almost 100 seconds in that last, whatever it was, 12 laps. Dude, I don't get it. And like Cindric even says on the radio, like that was kind of the line for me, is he was like, don't know how Dixon made it, especially with using all that push to pass. Not sure we'll ever know. And that's kind of the line for me, because it doesn't make sense, man. And I know he's famous for being good at it. And I hope that he's just that much better at it than anybody else, and it's not something else. But like that one was hard to like witness. And I'm watching it again. I'm like, man, I said so many times on that broadcast, no way he's going to do it. No way he can. Joseph's going to blow right by. Oh, well, there's no way Scott can use push to pass. There's no way Scott wins this race. I'm like, God damn it, man.
Oh, maybe Joseph sucks. Colton will do it. No.
Dude, yeah. Maybe Joseph's car is really bad in traffic.
Right.
Colton loves driving through people in traffic.
Yeah.
No,
at Long Beach,
not gonna
for
happen.
sure. Yeah.
Specifically at Long Beach.
Right.
Yeah. It was, I still can't believe it. I still can't believe it. It was a hard one to rewatch and realize.
Hard. I didn't love it, but hey, that is what it is. And then the ending, the episode got pretty good, pretty tasty.
It was like a full-on like scripted show kind of ending with all the news clips and all that stuff. Like that was wow. That sets it up. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing, man. Sorry, Tim, you were gonna say something?
Oh, I was gonna say, I really hope the next episode, and this might be kind of a weird angle, I want to see like how race control found out about it. I want to see how it got to IndyCar, where like, I hope they had cameras there. I that's the one part of the story I haven't seen yet.
There's definitely not cameras in race control. I'm not sure if like, I doubt they're going to be able to like interview anybody from race control to get the full story. We'll see. But here's the thing. Let me throw this idea. Well, yeah. Okay. So that's the episode, right? That's the end, the teaser of what's coming up with the penalties and everything heading into Barber. But man, how bad was it for Scott's parents if they just stayed 1 week later? In hindsight.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so kind of pivoting the conversation a little bit, I totally get this, playing the show up to the 500, right? To the build up. And it's insanely impressive what the production team has to do to make this show happen. Like they start filming 100 days before the race. And by the time we're getting to now, like they're filming at the GP and they have like 4 days to turn around an hour episode of television, which is, it's like unheard of how they're doing it. It's so impressive. What do you think about letting them film whatever they want for that 100 days, but then releasing it in the same time period a year later? So that way you have the time to properly build the stories. You know what the edit's going to be roughly before you even start. You have all the footage, you know the storylines, and it can be like a tease to build up before the 500 the following year kind of thing. In the same way that, again, I'm not saying this because this is what they do. I just had this thought. Like, that's what Drive to Survive does, right? They film all season and they release it right before the next season starts to get you excited about the upcoming season. Why don't we do 100 Days to Indy and as like a recap of what happened last year and get everybody excited about Indy this year?
Because here's the thing. Let's be honest. There is nothing that we're going to do that's going to compete with Formula One. And that
I'm not trying to do that.
By doing a show that mirrors their concept, it is. And so their whole point of this was to do it Hard Knock style, right? Where it's live, it's rough, it's a counterpart to the season and the things you're watching on television. So they intentionally did it this way. They had the option to go the Drive to Survive route, right? I think it's the right move because as much as it's a challenge for them and ultimately some of the episodes are going to miss because the people that you feature are not going to have a good weekend or vice versa. The people you don't feature are going to come out of nowhere. You're at least better off to tell a story in your way versus trying to tell a story that's already been done. I feel like it's just my opinion.
Well, you say it doing it the Drive to Survive way. It's doing it the every other documentary series way, right? Like it's not a Drive to Survive didn't pioneer this. If anything, we're kind of breaking the mold a little bit with the way we're doing it.
Like having an arrow screen. Yeah.
But because I'm with you. I like the things that are unique about it and the fact that it is kind of live and whatever. But like, people were giving flack to the series to like 100 Days because the first episode had nothing to do with the penalties in St. Pete, even though it was at St. Pete. It's like, well, yeah, guys, that episode was locked before that, way before that even happened, right? But then you could sort of tailor it so that like they would have made Barber the Scott McLaughlin episode, and it could have. Yeah. I know that it's nice to have the dichotomy, but you can also choose that, right?
You could get team owners involved and that sort of thing.
You could tell a more complete
Gavin's opinion on all this, and
So, but
hey, Gavin, how did Dixon win Long Beach?
It's also just going to be like that's less of a time of editing, and that's more of a thing of, or less of an issue with the editing and how much time it's going to take to do, and more of an issue of how many cameras they have, how many, how big is the crew?
No. Like, it's more expensive because you have to film everything, right?
Yeah.
You have to film everything in order to do that. But it's funny though, you talk about so far. So the episode features, right? The first episode was Joseph and Marcus. Joseph won. Marcus didn't have a great day, had a mechanical problem. Second episode was Pillow, who won, and
Pato.
All I can remember, Pato, who didn't have a great day at Thermal. Third episode was Felix, who got pole. I know he had a bad race, but then McLaughlin, not a bad race. He managed a problem in the race, but like got pole, big deal, first pole for the team. And then McLaughlin, who had a mechanical failure. It's like it kind of seems like they have some control over this. Whoever two drivers are featured, one has a pretty good day or a pretty good weekend, and one has kind of a not great weekend.
Yeah, fair.
Well, next week we can look forward to more of the story that won't die.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be ongoing now, I think, for the remainder of the show. But that's a Thursday episode conversation. So that was episode 3, 100 Days.
Wait, I have one shout out I want to give on this because voice of the pit stop challenge at Long Beach was my old roommate DJ, who got in commentating through iRacing during COVID and all that, and he just got engaged. So I want to throw out a congratulations to DJ. He does the Indy Next commentating and a lot of track stuff. Good dude. Happy for him.
Do you think that McLaughlin has taken Ferrucci out to dinner yet?
No.
It was funny because like when they're doing that in the pit stop competition and Ferrucci's like winner buys dinner or loser buys dinner next time we're in Charlotte because they both live there. And
Scott
the look
was
on
like,
Scott's
we definitely have got you.
Okay. Yeah, like we're not gonna get beat, but we're the thirsty threes, baby. We're not getting beat. And the Foyt crew absolutely him up. And so now Scott owes Santino dinner. We got to follow up on that. We'll follow up on that this